Welcome to the Social Engineer Podcast, the Human Element Series. This is episode 296. I can't even believe that number is real. I'm Chris Hadnaghi, CEO and founder of Social Engineer LLC, the Innocent Lives Foundation, and the Institute for Social Engineering. And this podcast has been around since 2009, if you can believe that. And as always, our sponsor is our company, Social Engineer. Welcome to 2025. I know it's March, but we got a lot of new things happening, like the Human Behavior Conference is now live. You can be signing up for that. That's happening in November. So really excited about that. And there'll be some more additions to the website as the months go on. You can check that out at humanbehaviorcon.com. Okay, let's do some quick announcements. If you're interested in social engineering, then you should be in our Slack channel. We have, I think over 2,000 people in there now, or at least close to it, every day talking about all aspects of SE. Keep in mind, it is a family-friendly and legal place to chat about it. So if that's not you, then don't come on in. But if it is you, you can find the link in the show notes, or if you can't, just hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to get you in there. I want to invite everyone to take a moment to go to innocentlivesfoundation.org. If you're not familiar with the nonprofit there, we've been around for just about going close to 8 years now. And at this point, we're over 760 cases. We've helped law enforcement around the globe geolocate people who traffic children and create child abuse material. And the work that the team is doing there, our volunteers and our employees, is just so amazing. And you can support us through voluntary donations as a 501c3, or if you want to volunteer, you can do that. Or if you're a parent or caregiver or a child, you're looking for some information on these problems, we have a ton of information on the site there. Also, if you like the music on the podcast, it's none other than the best rock and roll band on earth called Clutch. Go to clutchmerch.com. Check them out. Best thing to do is go see them live, though. And if you're a fan of the show, you know that Neil, the lead singer, helped me start the ILF about 8 years ago. So give them lots of love. And last but not least, if you like this episode, give us a thumbs up or a like, and keep your ideas coming in. Your suggestions for guests or your requests really do help us. So please keep them coming. And with that, let's get to our guest today. That's what we're all here for, which is a good friend of mine. Dr. Lydia Kostopoulos is a globally recognized strategist that brings clarity and context as to what is on the horizon. Her unique expertise at the intersection of emerging technology, security, and macro trends has been sought by the United Nations, U.S. Special Operations, the European Commission, NATO, multinationals, tech companies, design agencies, academia such as MIT and Oxford Business School, and foreign governments. She helps her clients understand new technologies, emerging value chains, and contextualizes the convergence of our time. She founded the boutique consultancy Abundant Studio and has experience working in the U.S., Europe, Middle East, and East Asia. And I want to add one more thing. She's also the author of this amazing book that I'm reading right now that we're going to be talking about today. I don't know why that's not in your bio, but that should be, because this book is great. Lydia, nice to have you here.
It's great to be here, Chris.
So I think we've been friends now for what, like 10 years?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think
when I met
11.
you were working in the UN.
No, I was working in the United Arab Emirates.
Oh, okay. That's right. That's why you were in the UK. That's why I met you in the UK in a class. Yeah. Well, what a wonderful journey. So usually what I start off with this episode is I want to ask, well, how did you get to where you are today? Like what made Dr. Lydia who you are today?
Well, I suppose just like anybody else, you react and ebb and flow to what's happening in your life, what's happening in the world context, the opportunities that present themselves, and the person you are in every moment. Because we change as people, and the things that we want also change. And so 9/11 really motivated me to get into national security. And at the time, it was really about counter-terrorism. And that is when I started looking into my first job. I was an analyst looking at insurgent groups, and I found that they were using the internet and cyberspace, and they were using it to disseminate their ideology and organize themselves. And this new cyberspace realm was quite interesting, but in essence, that was the beginning of what continues to be an interest in emerging technologies and how it changes, whether it's the conflict landscape, which is what I predominantly have been working on, but now to kind of how it changes value chains in general across industries.
That's fascinating. I mean, it's not really like you didn't wake up one day and go, I'm going to go hunt terrorists. So like, it was really 9/11 motivated you to kind of devote your brain space to that. Yeah.
Yes. And that changed too, because then I got into after I saw the cyberspace elements of terrorism, then I got into the cyber warfare elements in general between nation states. And then the policy side And then when you get into cyber warfare, then all of a sudden you're in this exponential technology chain of every single information technology that comes with it. And I think we are all in this space now, whether we call it cyber anymore or not. It's digital. This digital environment is our new economy. So when I was in college in the early 2000s, the digital economy was not a thing. Amazon was just getting started to be a thing, and Facebook and social media didn't exist yet. And then now we're fully fledged inside this digital economy where it has new value chains and a whole new economic stack.
So going from that to now where you're writing this book called Imagination Dilemma. You wrote the book, not writing it. And from my reading, the thesis of this is when technology can do everything for you, what is left is the imagination. So take me from the terrorists, cyberspace, internet, emerging technology to this.
Actually, I can do that.
Okay.
Because there's a wonderful thread line through all of it. So when I was looking, let's say in the year 2005, 6-ish, around how terrorists were using cyberspace, what it was doing is it was democratizing their ability to organize themselves across national borders in ways that they were not able to prior to the internet. So this is a technology that has super empowered them in ways that they were not empowered before. And the continuation of each technological advancement, and oh, by the way, they're happening faster than they used to happen in the past, has democratized more and more access to people. So the argument of the book is that when technologies become more democratized, everybody starts to have it, and the level playing field becomes quite even. And so now it's like, what's the difference? You have AI, I've got AI. You've got cloud services, I've got cloud services. You have satellite internet, I have satellite internet. Like, we all have the same stuff now. So what is the big differentiator? What is the competitive advantage? And I think the competitive advantage is what always has been, which is how clever are you in leveraging these new technologies? And so in the space of terrorism, it's how clever are you in being able to do whatever it is you want to do. And this applies to every single industry and every single professional. So as we think about technological unemployment, which for those who are not familiar with the term, it's basically means those who lose their job because technology replaces the tasks that they were doing. And so we have to say, great, well, what were we doing anyway? What is our big value proposition? And that's the second big thing of my book. So the first one is, when technology can do everything for you, what's left is imagination. The second one is what are you really in the business of doing? And we have to dig deeper into what is our actual value proposition. Because what we do isn't necessarily our value proposition. It's what comes out of it that's our value proposition. And a lot of people are scared, like, oh, AI is going to take my job, or AI is going to destroy our company. And this could be very true. But you need to then answer that question. Well, what were you really doing? What is it you're offering to people? And see how technology can boost that, in essence, boost the time to value that you deliver.
I was just having a conversation with an AI guru about this, because they're quickly developing the voice technology where AI can actually have a conversation, which made me think, boy, human vishing is going to go by the wayside, probably soon, because if I can have a team of bots do thousands of vishing calls where a human can only do maybe 8 to 10 an hour, the amount of work we can get done is amazing. But it made me go, oh, what does that mean? Like, we're going to not have humans doing this anymore? It doesn't make sense. But who's going to train it? And who's going to think of the pretext? Not going to ask the bot to do it, right? So we still need I like what you're saying, is we still need that imagination part, that critical thinking part, that I don't know if AI is going to have that, because it's still being taught by us, right?
Well, let me raise you on that. So you said we're going to have AI that's, doing all the vishing and the phishing and the social engineering aspects. So what you're talking about is text, it's phone calls that sound like a human saying whatever. The fidelity on AI human talking is quite good these days. However, you're not anticipating the new thing that's going to come, which is we're all going to have our AI agents that process all these things. So it's going to be an AI phishing against somebody's AI, like Border Patrol. And because people don't even go through their emails, whether it's Microsoft's Copilot or whoever else, the latest thing is like, hey, I'll summarize all your emails for you. And it's like, okay, well, you're not even clicking things. And then I'm sure there's going to be some back end rule about clicking, and it's going to be in some sort of sandbox cloud environment to click on it. And so now social engineers are going to have to up their game, and then people defending are going to up their game. So this is kind of like the imaginative piece of how this can continue with technology.
I like that. Yeah, 'cause it's kind of interesting. When you were saying that, it made me think that when I started doing this, and phishing was just so easy, right? You could spoof domains, you could do anything. Then somebody says, oh, we need to have this technology that checks if the domain is real or if it's fake. Then we're like, okay, what do we do about that? Oh, now I got to go buy the domain to make it real. But then we have technology that says, well, you have to see how old it is. If it's brand new, no, block it. So now we have to buy domains in advance, so they have some age, and we have to keep thinking ahead of the technology that was coming out. This is no different. It's just going to have to be much faster.
Well, also thinking about like anticipating how socio-technological culture is going to change. And that is also recognizing. So one thing is we talked about like, a tit for tat, a technological tit for tat, right? This escalates like this, the technology is going to escalate like that. But we also, alongside that, need to be thinking about the social change that's happening. So this is kind of like the human aspect that has nothing to do with technology. How are we doing in society? We are in information overload land. I mean, the fact that a fish comes through is a miracle at this point in time, when people don't even have time to respond to their own texts. At a point that people don't even click because all they can do is heart something. Like we're in a completely different world that we need to recognize that people are tired, are exhausted, are overextended, are burnt out. And so that's something to think about as well.
Yeah. I picked out a few things in your book that I wanted to talk about and get your information on, your thoughts. So in the book, you talk about 4 facets of imagination. What are those 4 facets, and how do we apply that? Like let's go see what are the 4 facets first.
Okay, sure. So basically, the book is full of critical thinking tools. Imagination is an act of critical thinking. And if we look at imagination as a gem, there are 4 facets. I see the 4 facets as identity, convergence, humanity, and dreams. Now, these are facets through which we can imagine. The first one, I think, is quite powerful, and it's the ability to reimagine your identity and hold a bigger space to imagine different versions of yourself. And this is actually a critical act that every leader and every organization and every professional and every individual person in their individual life must do across the course of their existence. Why? Because nothing stays the same. The only thing constant in life is change. So Samsung has had to reinvent itself and its offering. NVIDIA has had to reinvent it. All these like big brands have to do that. And Apple, when they said, okay, we're no longer doing iPods, we're doing iPhones. And, they reinvented who they are. They reinvented the value that they're delivering. And they were quite imaginative in creating this ecosystem of apps and all of that. They could not have done that had they not reimagined their value proposition and how they delivered it. So organizations to thrive, succeed in this very fast-moving environment, it's not stopping for anybody. Technologies keep advancing, and you need to keep up. And to do that, you need to reimagine yourself and what it is that you are really in the business of doing. What is the real value that you're offering? And then you can figure out the technology stack that can help you. So that's one. The second one is convergence. I am referring to technology convergence in this context. So when we need to be able, because everything is so technology driven and we've got so much of it in our lives, and soon enough, we're going to have it embedded in our bodies. We're already wearing wearables and whatever else. We need to understand how technologies converge and anticipate where they'll go. So, and this is important for us as individuals if we want to be competitive in the labor market. And it's important for organizations if they want to be competitive and protect their economic moat. And I'm going to give an example. We've got technology convergence with another technology like AI and robotics creates new value together, many different forms of value. And then we have a second type. I call this the technology butterfly effect. And then the second one is technology convergence with infrastructure convergence. That is how Amazon was created. Amazon was built on top of 4 critical infrastructures. It was, two are critical. One maybe is not critical, but it's the landlines, the PCs at our home, the critical massive personal computers in our homes. It is the Visa and MasterCard payment system that had an existing network to be able to make payments. And then finally, the USPS system, the postal service that was across the nation that could deliver to every home. on top of these four things, Amazon was able to then leverage technology convergence and create a website and deliver a retail website where you can buy and, deliver to your home, which is very normal now. But that we're at that moment where we can create these new versions of Amazon because we have new different critical infrastructures or infrastructures that are being created. For example, satellite internet. What are the things that you can combine with satellite internet? What are the new value propositions? So that's a way to imagine. And then, finally, compounded convergence, where you start to see the network effects with data compounding and algorithms. These are all kinds of ways where you can create new value and be more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is humanity. So the humanity facet of imagination is literally leaning into humanity, because at the end of the day, every single product is meant to cater to a human need. We are not building any form of technology for something that's not human in some way or another. They're all for us. The robots are for us. Whether they're manufacturing something for us or they're helping us in our home, they're for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to really think about, this is what I said about the social part. Like, what is it that people really want? Where are these gaps? For example, the loneliness epidemic and the fact that our demographics are shifting very notably towards an older population. We're going to have far more people who are over 65 than below. And this means that organizations, whether it's how they employ people, what services they offer, it doesn't matter if you're a travel agency, you're a clothing agency, it doesn't matter what you are. If the majority of your demographic is over 65, you're going to have to start rethinking how you do things, including governments are going to have to rethink that. So you need to imagine differently through the human aspect. And then finally is dreams, which is the most powerful facet of imagination. Because dreaming, and I'm not talking about the dreams when you sleep at night, I'm talking about the things that you wish, desire, think about that you would like to realize and come to life. Because if you cannot dream it, if you can't imagine it, then you can't design it and you can't execute it and you can't bring it to life. So the first step of anything that has been out there, every single business, every single thing has first been imagined. And many of those have been dreams. Not all things that have been imagined have been somebody's passion dreams. But the dreams ones are super powerful because they have a huge drive behind it. And so it's a great motivator to be very imaginative.
I love that. Very, very detailed with that. So thank you for that explanation. I like the humanity part and I like them all, but the convergence and humanity part was interesting. I'd never really thought about how, like, that structure of Amazon, taking those four factors and creating what they did. Like, it's really interesting to me to break it down that way. You can almost understand the way you put it, why that was so successful, right? They took something that we all needed. And especially when pandemic happened, I mean, Amazon was like life-saving almost for many people, right? Because you couldn't go to stores, you couldn't go out. So now you can get things just brought right to your home. Okay. I had another point here from your book that I wanted to bring up. Turning crisis into strategic advantage was something you talk about. You talk about in the book. You talk about transforming challenges into opportunities through imaginative problem solving. For a lot of people out there, and me included too, sometimes when you're in crisis mode, it's hard to sit back and go, "How am I going to make this? Where's the silver lining? I can't see any silver lining at all." So, what are you talking about here with this part of the book, and how do you suggest people even do it?
Yeah. So in the book, I talk about the polycrisis. So the multitude of crises happening at once and converging together, which is a compounded crisis, so to speak. Specifically thinking about climate change, war, and their subsequent impacts on the food supply chain, the fact that we have water scarcity in the world. All of these kinds of things are together. And then you have also social crises like the loneliness epidemic. The World Health Organization has identified this as a global public health crisis. And so these are all things that are a crisis or negative, but you can look at all of those and say, well, how is it that we can do something positive with this? And so, for example, when it comes to climate change and climate displaced people, this is a topic that I am personally interested in. By 2050, there's going to be around 2 billion people displaced because of climatic events. We already have people who are displaced today. You don't need to look far outside the US to see how this past hurricane season has taken away homes, disrupted lives, communities, retail, businesses, you name it. And for me, I think about, well, those people need to rebuild. And how are those people going to get back up on their feet? How are those kids going to get back in school? The people get back into jobs and businesses back open again. And if you think about it from a technology perspective and an abundance mindset, which I cultivate, an abundance mindset is one that sees a wealth of opportunities out there instead of very few. You can say, well, wait a minute. We've got all these amazing technologies that we can use. We can 3D print homes, get these people back under shelter. We can get tablets and get these kids back in school remotely. There's a lot of telehealth that's exploding right now. How can we leverage that? And so using the same, let's say, emergency response resources, but trying to use them towards rebuilding in a way that gets people back on their feet, paying taxes again, getting back into the labor market, because that's what you want. A healthy society, and a healthy society is one that is a part of it, not one that is without a shelter and can't even have food. So that's an example of saying, okay, well, this is a tragic thing, but what is it that we can do? So there's many companies, had they looked through that lens, they could have said, I can pitch in here, I can pitch in there. And the same thing with the demographics. So you might say, oh, I had somebody I knew who came to me saying, I'm very concerned about my organization because by the end of this decade, we're going to only have a third of the people left because everybody else is due for retirement. I have no idea how we're supposed to hire that many more people. And also, I'm really concerned about the talent and the expertise that we're losing. I need to understand how we can leverage technology to kind of stopgap that situation and where possible, use it and then find humans to, do the human part. And so it's saying, okay, well, this doesn't have to be a problem. You could spin it and say, how can we make our organization more efficient? Let's double down. What are we in the business of doing? What is our real value proposition? How are we going to do it with tech and less people? And what is the expertise of the humans that we need to cultivate internally through apprenticeship programs or, putting it into some sort of algorithmic form if it's a process? Institutional knowledge is very difficult to put into AI. This is kind of a human culture cast to other human cultures. That's another thing. So does that answer the question?
It does. Yeah, very, very thoroughly. For all of you listening, there's a feature in this book that I want to ask you about, Lydia, but it's just for those on the YouTube channel, you can see it. Throughout the book, she has these QR codes, maybe some section, and then there's a QR code. Some of them lead to videos on YouTube. Some of them lead to content on your website. First of all, I've not seen this before, so I think it's a genius idea. So if someone else has done it, I'm giving you the credit because I haven't seen it. So in my world, you're the creator of this idea. What made you want to go through the book and add things like, music videos for YouTube or a song that kind of fit the subject of that chapter? What was the thought process in adding these to make the book so interactive?
I was thinking about the human experience of the book. And so I was leaning into the human side. And I thought it would be such a delight because I read books and then I have to stop and then I have to Google what they said. And there's some things that I would just rather QR code out and go straight to it instead of having to put the book down and then, Google whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, I tried to do that in the spaces that I thought people might want to have that. So there's some reports I mention, and there's 2 conversations that I include in the book that are excerpts, and I put what each person had said in that conversation. But then I also have a QR code in case you just actually want to watch it, which it's just a minute long. But it's so nice to see people having that conversation. And then with the songs, I consider myself a creative person. I also do make art for those who are watching. On YouTube, the art behind me, it's called the AI Matrix. It's made out of hundreds of pills, and it's a robot that has a red pill and a blue pill in its hands. And so I thought to myself, how can I leverage AI? And now that, AI, you can create your own music. And so I thought one way to showcase what AI can do is I gave it a prompt that was one sentence about the chapter, each chapter. And it was the algorithm of Suno AI that created all the lyrics. And I think that that's something philosophical in it of itself. And the music, I think, is so fun. I enjoy all of the songs. And so I included that at the end of every chapter. So there's an element of like, look at what AI can do. And then in the appendix, you have the prompt, the detail, everything of how I did it. But I thought it was quite interesting to see what AI can do. We're in this moment. I mean, I think in the future, people will be like, oh, we just take that for granted. But I
love it. No, I love it. I was at a conference recently and they were talking about the use of AI, and somebody made a really interesting comment, is that what they have been encouraging students to do is to use AI as a tool, not as a replacement for your brain. And that's what I saw you doing throughout the book, was using it as a tool, right? And to enhance the experience of reading the book. And as I'm one of those people too, like I learn by not just reading or hearing something, but then I have to see it. So I need like a multiple sensories to be able to, catalog something up here. So that really does, make it a very human centric book. I really enjoy that. Here's my last one I had, Great. Because this is something I think I'm a little selfish that I want to ask this one, but you talk a lot about future proofing your organization by using imagination and critical thinking. Can you give us a little more on that? What does it mean to future proof our organization by using those things?
So we talked about the 4 facets of imagination. One of the things I think organizations are very worried about today is keeping up. And rightfully so, because, every day we're looking at social media and like AI can do something new. And you're like, but I couldn't catch up with what happened this weekend. What do you mean this is like a new thing? And organizations rightfully are concerned that smaller competitors, let's go back to terrorists. So terrorists are considered asymmetric actors in the context of a nation state looking at them. And they're asymmetric because they have fewer capabilities than the nation state. However, technology super empowers them to compete at or cause problems that the nation state would need to respond to with the breadth of their capabilities that terrorists don't have. So if we were to take that asymmetric example and apply it to businesses, smaller businesses today are able to compete with larger businesses because of AI and all these other things. And so while OpenAI is not a small business, given the amount of investment it has, prior to it becoming so famous, when it first came out and everybody started paying attention to it, Google had a red alert meeting, I think is what it's called. It's like red something, like basically red flag. We need to have an emergency executive meeting. And you can Google this online. It came out on the news. And basically it was just, they wanted to talk about how OpenAI, ChatGPT, could threaten their biggest value proposition, which is the search engine. And, here is an organization that, was a nonprofit at the time. And it came out of nowhere, invented this way to interact. And all of a sudden, overnight, it's changed our expectations. We no longer have the patience to scroll through the Google search. And I don't even mean getting to the second page. I mean, like, why do I have to scroll down? I just want the answer.
You're 100%
because now
right.
we're socialized to have that answer. And so, but that, yes, of course, it took a lot of investment to get to that level with OpenAI. However, small companies now benefit from that. And so Google and Facebook, for example, some of their hugest profit bringing activities is advertising. And this disrupts advertising because now you just get exactly what you want. You're not interfered with anything else in the way. And so it really required a reimagining of what it is they're doing, but also leaning through the humanity lens, the technology convergence lens, and kind of putting all those pieces together. Yeah. But also, I think having an open mind and an abundance mindset to say, not scarcity and saying, oh my gosh, our business is going down the drain because our search engine is, not going to be used. It's like saying, no. How can we level up our search engine? Yeah. It's a mindset, I think, that is important.
No, I love that. And, as you said it, I didn't even think about it. I use ChatGPT more than Google searches now. Like I have just a version open all the time. And if I want to find something on the internet, I'll be like, hey, where can I find this? Or I'll even limit it sometimes to a particular website and say, like, I'll be like, what episode was Dr. Lydia on the Social Engineer podcast? Cause I don't want to have to go to my website even and search through it. And it will come back and be like, oh, 296. I'm like, that was great. That saved me about probably 15 seconds, but that was awesome,
it's interesting that you say that, because did you know that Google already has like the first thing that comes up in the search right under is like a Gemini response. So
Yes.
it does try to do that, but people are still going to GPT and they're going to Claude and they're going to Perplexity. And Perplexity, really interestingly, calls themselves an answer engine.
Huh.
And this really is, again, reimagining, because search engine, Google, and answer engine is actually the real value proposition. Because when we go on Google, we're not there really to search. We're there to get an answer. To get our answer, we have to search.
Yeah.
And so this is about being open to like, what is the real value proposition? This is the second principle of the book. What are you really in the business of doing? So are you really in the business of being a search engine? No, you're in the business. So Google's is, organizing all the world's information. And it lends very well to answer engine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's like reimagining yourself and what it is you're really offering people. You're not offering a search engine. You're offering an Oracle one-stop shop to answers.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Really fascinating. I didn't even think about my role in all that until you said it. Then I'm like, yeah, I only use Google for OSINT now, because sometimes like chat GPTs and stuff don't really want to look people up, especially if they're not a well-known character. So I'm waiting for the OSINT AI to be created, But that's really, really fascinating. Okay. There's a couple of things I want to promote for you. So you've been doing a webinar series. I kind of walked people through the chapters of the book. Where can they find those series? Because I think by the time this comes out, the series will be over. Where can they find those webinars to kind of delve deeper into the book?
So they can go to imaginationdilemma.com, or they can just look on YouTube, Imagination Dilemma, and the YouTube channel for it has the playlist for all the webinars. And each chapter is basically a webinar where I explain with pictures and graphics and videos. I explain every chapter. So if you don't want to read the book, you can just go on YouTube and for free watch me explain every single chapter to you and every single tool, critical thinking tool that I use in my work and with my clients.
That's excellent. And besides that website, which we'll put in the show notes, if people want to interact with you or get more information on what you're doing, what's the best way to do that?
So on my website, they can find a contact form. It's abundance.studio. They can find me on LinkedIn. Some people like to DM me on Instagram. Whatever you want, come my way.
I don't know if I'd be inviting people in the DMs of your Instagram. That can get messy.
This is where journalists come. I don't know. It's a thing I find. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. Okay. Well, I always ask these two questions. So I've every guest on this series, every guest I've had since 2009, I ask these two questions. Besides your book, which we will put in the show notes, have you read any book or books that you said, and that doesn't even be about our topic today, but any books that just like everyone should read this book? This is an amazing book.
I believe we should all read The 100-Year Life. Living and Working in an Age of Longevity is the subtitle. And the reason I believe people should read that book is because we need to all adapt a longevity mindset. And this book is written by two London School of Economics professors. One is a sociologist and the other is an economist. And they explain how we are living longer lives. And the old concept of study, work, retire, this 3-part life is no longer feasible when you're living to 90. And anyone can just look around their lives and they're going to start to see people who are older than usual. And even if you look at people who are, let's say, celebrities or politicians, look at former President Jimmy Carter, who passed away recently at the age of 100.
Yeah.
So we are living longer. And so this changes the paradigm of how we live our life. And the book offers different ideas, such as taking care of your health, because who wants to spend 30 years in poor health? So you want to extend your health span, because if your lifespan's 90, but your health span, the years in which you lived in health is 60, then that's not a great way to spend the last years. And then the same thing with work, that we shouldn't think about working for 60 years straight. We should think about sabbaticals or ways that we can do ebbs and flows, like maybe part-time, then full-time, and experimenting with different things, going back to school, re-educating, particularly as technology is changing so fast and what we studied in college is not going to be so relevant a few decades in the future. So I recommend everybody to read it to cultivate their longevity mindset.
It's an interesting book. I never had that one recommended. It was just recently I was talking with my financial planner and he asked me a really interesting question. It's like, what's the average age of like your grandparents and parents when they passed away? And I'm like, well, why does that matter? And they're like, because as we're planning your future, you don't have just an endless source of money. So when you decide to retire, we got to say, how do we make whatever, like if you want to say, I want to maintain this lifestyle that you have right now, then you need to have X amount in the bank so you can live that way. But you're planning either on having so much that you can just use the interest and leave the stuff for your kids, or planning when you think you'll die, right? Because he said the worst you could do is say, I think my family, I'll go in their 80s, and then you live to be 100 and you didn't have any financial planning for the last 20 years of your life. Then what? And it's like, you're going to go back to work.
Well, I think that this also misses a critical point from a longevity mindset perspective, because the majority of financial planners say exactly what he has said, which is, save enough money. How long do you think you're going to live? You want this money in the bank. But no one says, oh, how are you taking your health? Like, what are you doing today to make sure that your knees are going to be okay when you're 80? Because just talk to anybody over 70 and they're talking about knee surgeries, hip surgeries, and those things cost a lot of money. Yeah. And, when financial planners never say, how much money did you save for chemotherapy, for your hip replacement, for your knee replacement? These are super I'm not saying you're going to have all of them.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at the odds, which is what financial planners do, then I feel that it is remiss to not say, how come we're not planning for that? And one way besides money, because I think most people would say, I'd rather have my knees. I don't want the money to pay for my knees. I'd rather have my knees.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And so it's saying, like, what are we doing today? What is the money you're spending today on your health today, so that you're not going to spend that in the future? Mm-hmm. That's a different kind of financial planning.
Very much so. Yeah. Okay. And then the question that I ask always is, for me, I know I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for some very selected mentors in my life, people that kind of gave me a boost or a push or even a slap in the right direction. So do you have any people that you would consider to be like your greatest mentors?
I think I would rephrase that to the people I'm most grateful for to be where I am today. And so obviously my parents and their mindset. However, besides my parents, it would be, and this is the first two lines in my acknowledgments in the book, is all the women who fought for women's rights. Because I would not be here today if women before me did not fight for the right for my gender to be able to be educated, to have their own bank account, to be able to have a job, to be able to be financially independent. I would not have been able to write that book. I would have not had the insights to be able to write that book. So I am here today because of them, and then because of my parents.
That's really nice. I don't think I've ever had anyone. I mean, a lot of people thank their parents, but I've never had anyone with that second, mentorship group. So that's really nice. That's very, very good. Okay. So we got your LK Cyber site. We got your Imagination Dilemma site. People can reach out to you on abundance.studio for your consultancy. We'll put links to your LinkedIn and of course to your book. This has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for writing the book. Really, it's kind of some really great concepts in there that I think are going to help a lot of people.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you all for listening. I hope this episode was as fun for you as it was for me. Next episode of the Human Element series is going to be a huge one. It's going to be episode 300, if you can believe that. Kind of fitting that we're hitting our 300 mark with the series that started this whole thing. So until next month, stay safe. See you.